Hello and welcome to Channel 2S. I'm your host Second Soundwave, and today's video is a different kind of beast. Instead of building the Zaku 1 or talking about the trickle of post-Shizuoka Gunpla news, I'm going to be talking about a rather interesting video recently made by fellow YouTuber Tokyosaurus. This video, entitled Why Gundam Age Failed, brought up many interesting points. However, there were some aspects of it that just didn't sit right with me. And hopefully this goes without saying, but just to be clear, this video is in no way meant to be an attack on Tokyosaurus or anything like that, not trying to start drama or anything. I'm just providing some information that I felt was missing and adding my own thoughts to this discussion. So, with all that out of the way, let's dive in. So if you haven't seen Tokyo's original video already, it's built off of a Japanese blog post in which a professor talks about why Gundam Age was so unsuccessful. This prompted a long chain of responses from other Gundam fans, but unfortunately the entire thread is written in Japanese, so there's not a whole lot I can glean from it. Fortunately, Tokyo summarizes all the major points of it in the video. He mentions how the sales numbers for Age were way below those of Seed, Destiny, and 00, as well as the kind of scientific formulas that are used to make popular anime. Then he compares the lead Gundam design to those of other recent series, mentions how simple the mecha and character designs are, and how it was meant for a younger audience. Finally, he makes the closing statement that IBO was made by Bandai in a response to the backlash from Age, and that it's succeeding because of that. This is the biggest point of contention that I have with the video, but before I tackle that comparison, I'm going to systematically go down through everything he mentioned in the video, because it was only around 3 minutes long, and I feel that this is a subject that should have a little more time dedicated to it. So let's start from the top with the sales numbers. Now in his original video, Tokyo did state that these are the manga sales numbers. Actually, they're the DVD Blu-ray sales. Not a big deal, just worth pointing out. Also going to really quick clarify that for those of you wondering, these numbers are the average sales per DVD volume combined with the average sales per Blu-ray volume during the original run of the show. So with all that out of the way, the numbers are 58,939 sales for Gundam Seed, 68,959 sales for Gundam Seed Destiny, and then for Gundam 00 we have 39,353 sales for Season 1, and 34,601 sales for Season 2. And then finally we have Gundam Age, with 2,270 sales. Ouch. Not looking too good for Gundam Age. Looking at these numbers, Age is clearly a massive failure that doesn't even come close to the success of its peers. Right? Well, yes and no. In order to understand just how big these numbers are, we need to compare them to the sales numbers of the general anime industry. As you can see, Gundam Seed and Seed Destiny aren't just the best-selling Gundam series, they're the 8th and 3rd best-selling anime of the last 17 years. And while Gundam 00 doesn't quite reach their heights, both seasons are still in the top 30. So these are some pretty heavy-hitting competitors to pit poor little Gundam Age against. Let's see how some other recent post-Age Gundam series have fared in comparison. Gundam Build Fighters had 9,351 sales, Reconquista G had 9,012 sales, Gundam Build Fighters Tri had 4,441 sales, and then Iron Blooded Orphans had 9,932 sales for Season 1, and only 5,778 sales for Season 2. These are much lower numbers than the ones we were dealing with earlier. Aside from second seasons and follow-up series, they all seem to be averaging around 9,000 sales each. Of course, Gundam Age still falls far below the average, but it's nowhere near as sharp a drop-off as we saw compared to Seed and 00. But there's still more to talk about here. So far, we've only looked at DVD and Blu-ray sales. But the thing is, Bandai and Sunrise measure a Gundam's success by more than just media sales. Gundam is a highly merchandise-driven franchise, and by far the most profitable merch for it are those plastic models we know as Gunpla. These little guys have way more sway in deciding the success or failure of a series than anything else, and Tri and Reconquista show this clearly. Build Fighters Tri only got a mere 4,441 media sales, but somehow managed to snag itself an OVA sequel, with 2 more on the way. This is because while Tri did have less media sales than the original Build Fighters, the models kept on getting more and more popular despite the poor reception of the second season. Conversely, while Reconquista did just as well as Build Fighters and IBO media-wise, the models ended up in sales bins within months of hitting store shelves, which prompted Bandai and Sunrise to try their hardest to pretend it never happened. So, what are the sales numbers for the Gunpla of Gundam Age? Well, sadly we don't know. Bandai doesn't seem to release that kind of information, so observation and estimation are really our only tools to find the answer. So, right now, Bandai doesn't seem to care too much about reprinting the Age kits, and in general, Gundam fans aren't really buying them. So I'd probably place them above the Reconquista kits in popularity, but below everything else. So in conclusion, yeah, Gundam Age is a failure, but not as outstandingly as it appears at first glance. So now that we got the numbers all cleared up, let's move on to the next talking point. In the original blog post, the professor explained that there are set formulas that are used to create successful anime, and that there's a sort of science to making a show popular. This is absolutely true, not just for anime, but really for all media forms. Just look at how often the same chord progressions are used in pop music, or how every movie studio nowadays has been building up their own cinematic universe now that Marvel has dominated the movie industry. There are also set formulas for anime that make them sell better, and I've more than likely brought this fact up any time I've ever talked about Seed or Destiny. These two shows followed every anime formula they could get their hands on with remarkable dedication, and were rewarded with astronomical success. Unfortunately, they also show very clearly the pitfalls of abusing these formulas and are great examples of how sometimes maximizing profits to the extreme can severely harm a series. But anyways, back to Gundam Age. Age does not follow many of the standard Gundam formulas because, as Tokyosaurus mentions later on in the video, Age was supposed to be a Gundam series for kids. This is made very clear by the art style they chose. The characters all have very soft, rounded, childlike features regardless of their actual in-universe age, and the Gundams sport bright primary colors laid out in large, eye-catching blocks. The main character even uses this handheld techno thingy to control his Gundam, which is apparently a must-have in any kid-targeted anime. So while it was breaking free of the classic Gundam formulas, Gundam Age replaced them with the formulas of many other kids' anime. The problem here is that Age was still marketed like a normal Gundam series, which made kids not really care about it, and existing fans expect something more in line with 00 or Seed. And furthermore, while Age certainly looked the part of a kid's show, it really didn't go that much lighter on the death, trauma, and heartbreak than any other Gundam series of its time. This served to further alienate it from its intended audience, and it didn't really redeem it for the older fans as they were already turned off by the cartoony aesthetic. Going further into the mecha designs of the series, Tokyo quotes a comment from the blog post that describes the Age 1 as a torched-down Exia, and he's not exactly wrong. The Age 1 is indeed a simpler Gundam than the Exia, but so is every other lead Gundam except maybe the Barbatos, I guess. Exia is an unusually complex design with heavily segmented armor and color separation that goes well beyond the norm. Once you put the Age 1 beside some more average Gundams like the Strike and the Impulse, it really doesn't look that out of place, especially if you go by the in-show animation models. Of course, it doesn't have any big fancy wing packs, but it does have some nifty swap-out limbs to make up for it. Speaking of, Tokyo uses the Age 1 Titus as an example of Age's poor mecha designs without going into too much detail other than suggesting that it isn't fitting for a lead Gundam. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the Titus myself, but I still don't really see what his problem with it is. I mean, sure, it's got weird proportions, but it's an alternate form. Looking different's kind of the whole point. Now, at this point, I could talk about some of the other kid-oriented details of the show, like how the Vagon suits look monstrous and alien so kids can tell they're bad guys, or how multiple lines of toys and models for the show were designed to interact with an arcade game. But I think it's pretty clear at this point that Age was made for kids. I think you guys all get that, so I'm just going to move on to Tokyo's closing comment, which is actually what made me want to make this video in the first place. So at the end of his video, he said that IBO was a result of Sunrise intentionally doing everything they could to avoid the kiddiness of Age, and that's what made it a success. Now, there's two parts to this comment really, and to be honest, I disagree with both. First off, I don't really think the higher maturity level of IBO has really served any kind of benefit to it, because while it is indeed more successful than Age, it's still not that much more successful than anything else we've gotten recently, if we go by the numbers from earlier. It's a nice change for sure, but it hasn't exactly boosted the series to the top of the charts. Secondly, I don't really think that IBO is a very good example of Sunrise learning from Gundam Age. If you really want to see what Sunrise learning from Age looks like, I'd recommend looking no further than its immediate successor, Gundam Build Fighters. Now, Build Fighters is undeniably a kids' show, but with a twist. The story is simple, the stakes are comparatively low, and the main characters are kids with childlike character designs to match, and all these things make it a solid kids' show, but that's not all there is. There are older characters too, and these adult characters, like Fellini and Mr. Rao, are the ones that resonate strongly with older Gundam fans. These characters, combined with loads of Easter eggs and references to past Gundam series, plus the general appeal of seeing mobile suits from different universes beating the crap out of each other, all make Gundam Build Fighters a hit with existing Gundam enthusiasts. And since it was properly marketed as a kids show, and at its core still is a kids show, the kids love it too. Finally, and most importantly, it pushes the model kits like nobody's business. The entire show itself is really just one long shameless Gunpla advertisement, and thanks to this, the Build Fighters Gunpla sales keep on climbing even if the show itself struggles sometimes. All in all, it's a recipe for success that Bandai is still using today, and one that won't be going away anytime soon. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. I know this is kind of out of nowhere, and it's not exactly in line with my normal content, but it's something I felt needed to be talked about. As always, be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and of course subscribe if you aren't already for more Gundam and Gunpla related content. And as always, I'm Second Soundwave, and I'll see you next time. Take care, guys.